Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and I have another paint pouring video. So today I'll be making another set of 4 coasters. This time I'm using black as my base, which I've been wanting to do for a while now. And my colors are black, white, gold, which I've mixed with iridescent paint because my gold is semi-transparent, and then copper, which is a more opaque metallic. All of the paints are from Arteza. If you caught my first paint pouring video, you'll know I started on this journey of paint pouring to find a different way to use up my acrylic paints, and now I love it. So I got these silicone, they're called pinch bowls, and they're usually used in the kitchen, but I like this sort of process of paint pouring so much, I didn't want to continue to use plastic disposable cups. So I'm trying to transition to using more reusable implements like these silicone pinch bowls. The straw that I'm using is also a reusable straw. So so those are sort of the tools that I'm using, but certainly you don't really need a lot more than just paint, the whatever substrate you want to work off of, a canvas, a coaster like this. My next attempt of paint pouring will be on ornaments, plastic sort of sphere ornaments. So there's a lot that you can do with paint pouring besides making, large works of art, because certainly I am no artist and I'm still very, very new to paint pouring. And so you're just kind of going along on this journey with me, and just watching me kind of have fun, really. I do know that the technique I'm using this time is called puddle pouring. So I'm basically just pouring paint right on top of my canvas, which is the coaster, and sort of on top of each other too, which forms this concentric ring. And then from there, you can kind of do several different things to compose the final piece. And that includes tilting, it includes blowing over the paint to move it around. I try not to blow too much because it is creating that sort of gray as the black and the white mix. And when you see me bringing on the torch, I'm trying to, if there are any air bubbles, pop those air bubbles to see if I can get some self formulations. But I'm realizing that there's not a lot of cells forming, and I don't know if it's the technique, which is what I suspect, because the paints I've mixed the same, so 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part color paint, and so it could be a matter of the paint choices, because the metallic paints are, they have mica in them, whereas the other color paints that I've been using have pigment. So maybe mica doesn't react the same way with Floetrol and doesn't create cells in the same way. I don't know. So stay tuned, because I will show you a final recap of all 4 coasters after they've dried, but then as well I'm going to show you the first 2 sets that I created and what I do to actually finish the coasters so that they become usable and giftable, because ultimately what I'm going to do is create these sets as Christmas gifts that I'll give out at the end of the year. So the other thing that I will say about this particular technique is that I feel like as I was doing this, I felt like I had to kind of work harder at creating a composition. And I think that for me that's a little bit scary because I'm not an artist and I don't, really know what I'm doing. So I kind of feel like I had to work a little bit harder at really creating something that looked pleasing to even, at least my eyes. The first 2 coasters that I created, They just have a different look to them just because of the technique, but also I think to my eyes anyways, it was a lot simpler to actually create something that I felt looked, really fantastic. And I would have no clue how to recreate something like it, for any of these really. But it just looks a lot more complex, and it wasn't too terribly hard to do. Whereas this, I feel like I kind of had to think a little bit more about, should I blow this area out? Should I tilt it to stretch it out? What should I do? And so it's kind of, I guess in that way, I did have to be a little bit more thoughtful about this part here of actually how to move that massive paint around the coaster and get it to take form, take shape. And I think for an artist that's really cool, but for somebody like me who's not an artist, it's a little intimidating, it's a little scary. But I think in the end, I'm still really happy with everything that came out. It's still like infinitely easier than actually trying to paint with a paintbrush and create these various looks. So I'm definitely loving the color combinations that I've got going on here. I'm super glad that I added the copper because I lost a lot of the gold, and so that doesn't quite come through on all of the coasters. Okay, so here's a final look at the 4 coasters that I made in today's pouring session, and I really had a lot of fun with using black as a base. And I'm really happy that I added the copper, which was sort of, a last minute, it's there, caught my eye, and I just decided why not. But one of the reasons why it wasn't entirely, just spontaneous was because I have worked with the gold before, and I know that the gold that I have is semi-transparent. So if you look on, actually I still have the tubes here. If you look on the tubes of paint, oftentimes, I don't know if most or all, I'm not sure if this is a standard, but for these Arteza acrylic paints, the along with all of the information for, the number, the name of the paint, there's this square here, and what that tells you is the opacity of the paint. So here, the square is solid, so that means this is a more opaque paint than this one, where it's half solid, half sort of empty. So this is sort of a semi-transparent. And on these paints, it does also say mica. It has these stars. I think the star might be light fastness, I'm not sure. But you can see Mars Black here. This actually gives you the, I believe that's the actual pigment code for that. And I'm pretty much almost done with my white here. So kind of proud to have killed a tube. But I've been using white as a base a lot. I do have other white acrylic paint, and I just got a larger tube of black acrylic paint. I'm going to be looking for a different gold that, I don't know if there's a gold that's a little bit more opaque than the one I have. What I have been doing, and I don't know if it's the right thing to do or not, but as I mentioned earlier, I've been mixing my gold with some iridescent medium in the hopes of making it a little bit kind of more vibrant so that it doesn't get lost in the pour. And I knew that with especially using black as a base, that there's going to be high potential for the gold to get lost. So, for example, on this one, you don't really see any gold at all. But it's got, the copper has this gorgeous shine, which I love, against sort of that matte black, the matte white. So with this, I'm not getting, and I'll bring on the other 2 sets of coasters that I've made. I'm not getting much lacing or cell structure, even though I have mixed the paints pretty much the same for all 3 pour sessions that I've done so far. There's a little bit of cells here, but not a lot. And so I think it's just the way that I poured, because the technique I used for this set of 4 was like a puddle pour, where you just basically make a puddle of paint and then you start moving it around, blowing it around to create the composition that you're going for. Whereas the other ones were kind of a straight pour, but then I also did a technique of swiping some white over top, and that white is or that technique is going to create that lacing and those cellular formations. And I didn't do that here. I just poured puddles of paint. But here, so this right here is the gold, and that's the copper. So there's a little bit of the gold that comes through, but this was a really good exercise for me to do, because it's really showing me the difference of using two different metallics, but one that is more opaque and one that is semi-transparent, and the end result, the difference in the end result. So there are parts of this that I really love, like this wispy gold here, and then that's copper. Same here, there's like a wisp of gold here, and then I think I must have blown it out, so that's why it's a little bit more like hazy, because it is a semi-transparent. So that's what happens when you blow out a semi-transparent. But then here's where I think I blew out some of the copper, and you can still see there's a lot more, because the copper is more opaque. There's definitely more of that coming through. At the time, a lot of these areas before they dried off, they looked kind of like a muddy gray mess, and it did sort of dry, sort of still muddy. But if you look at it a little bit more closely, there's some interesting kind of marbling. There's just not a lot of color contrast there. So things do change a little bit as they dry. But that's how these 4 came out. So altogether, pretty happy with using black as a base. Kind of fun to do the puddle pour technique. I am also curious to do maybe a dirty cup pour, and or maybe a ring pour even, just to have some fun with some different techniques. I think this gets you a more marbled look, and I feel like I actually had to sort of know what I was doing in terms of forming a composition, which I don't know what I'm doing. So that's why this technique feels a little bit harder to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I am not an artist by any stretch. And so it just felt like, I did have to do some, manipulation to get it into this form, and I'm happy with the results, but I feel like in the moment as I was doing it, that it just wasn't quite as easy. It didn't come together quite as easily. I had to kind of work for it. So that's one technique and one color combination, and then I also want to get to showing you how I'm finishing. I've actually finished off completely my first set of coasters. So I'm just gonna bring on 2 of each set of 4. So this was my very first attempt. The blue, white, there's actually 2 shades of blue, white, and gold. This was 2 shades of sort of a magenta and a pink, white and gold. And then this is black, white, copper, and gold. So those are the 3 sets that I've made so far. These are a lot of fun. I don't know how many coasters I have left. I think I have maybe 3 more sets that I can make. So what basically these are the 3 stages that my coasters are in. So these are completely finished, they're sealed, and they have the cork backing so that, you know, when you put this on like a glass table or something, that ceramic isn't going to scratch. And these have been poured and sort of cured. They've been left to dry for a really good amount of time. I mean, I think it's been over a month that these have been drying. So these are essentially as dry as they are ever gonna be. So that means they're ready to be sealed. And I'll show you what I use to seal. And then these are like less than 24 hours, so dry to the touch, but they still need more time to really, like, especially since I think there's actually more paint on these than what I poured onto these. So the thicker your layer of paint, the more time I think you want to leave it to sort of cure and dry. And I don't care too much that the bottoms are messy, because these cork pads are going to cover most of it. I think now that I see how this fits, I might, you know, I might make sure that not only are the edges covered, but that it covers actually a little bit, you know, on the underside as well. And that way it just wraps completely under the cork. So those are the stages. So this is ready to get the final sort of sealant, which makes it so that if you put like a hot cup on this, it's not just going to sort of melt or ruin the paint. And then these need about a month to dry and sort of completely cure before I get to the sealing process. So let me talk a little bit about that. I did a lot of YouTube research to see how other people do this, and this was what I ended up choosing. So there's a lot of different ways. First off, I did not want to use resin, just because A, resin is expensive, B, it does have a very toxic kind of chemical smell, and you don't want to have to worry about that. And so I wanted something that was easy, that's safe to handle, and not super expensive. So this is what I ended up going with. There were a lot of other YouTubers who seem to do this a lot, and also some YouTubers who did like head-to-head comparison of different products to see how different finishing supplies work, and the main test being to put a hot cup of coffee or a hot cup of water onto the sealed coaster to ensure that it doesn't melt any of the sealant, because a lot of times maybe the sealant is just sort of a varnish, but it can get melted under heat. And so the goal for a lot of folks who did these side-by-side comparisons was to just ensure that, okay, if you're, in practical senses, if you actually use it as a coaster, you put a hot coffee mug on it, or a hot cup of coffee, or tea, or water, or whatever, will it start melting? Will it leave a ring? Will the coaster stick to the bottom of the cup? All of that. And a lot of times from different artists, this turned out to be the best performing. And it's off the top of my head, I don't really remember how much it costs, but it's not too terribly expensive, especially as compared to resin. And so this is the Dupli-Color acrylic enamel clear coat, protective gloss finish, long-lasting durability. Now they make a few different SKUs, I suppose, of clear coat finishes. One is actually, it says it's like for engine blocks, like the engine of a car, and it's rated to be X number of degrees Fahrenheit in terms of the amount of heat that it can withstand, because it is it is meant to go onto an engine. And surprisingly, one YouTuber did a side-by-side comparison and found that it actually didn't perform as well with the hot, cup test. So that's quite surprising, considering it's meant for engines. So I've only done one application, and one application includes kind of multiple passes. So that's not to say just this is spray one. It's not one coat of this. It's one application as per the instructions, which you can, if you want, do multiple applications if you really want to build up a sort of thicker seal. But I did one application, and then I did my own little hot water, hot mug test, and sure enough, it worked beautifully. No rings, no nothing really. So really nice. And since I've done all four of the blue ones, it may be hard to tell, but the you can see, or it's kind of subtle. I don't know if you can see it very well on camera, but to the naked eye, when you look at these two side by side, this definitely looks a little bit more matte. So after this clear coat finish, it does add a little bit of that shine back to it. I wouldn't say it's a high gloss shine. I mean, this says protective gloss finish, but it's not like a super shiny high gloss finish. It's I would say it's almost like, a semi-gloss kind of finish where you can see the shine, but it's not watery slick, not that kind of shine. So these the magenta pink coasters are ready for this. I just need for the weather to kind of cooperate with me, because it's nice to do it on a nice sunny day so that I can spray it outside, leave it in the sun to dry in between coats, and then not have to worry about doing it indoors and all of that jazz. So then the last thing to do to finish these off is the set of coasters that I bought. And again, these are coasters. They're not like tiles, like bathroom tiles, which you can use because those are ceramic and they're square also, and they're a lot more. They're a lot more I think cost effective too. But what I'm gonna do, so even though these have some dry adhesive edge to edge, which is really nice, and I appreciate that, I'm still gonna squiggle on some liquid adhesive, because dry adhesive, if you've ever seen me make a mini album before, dry adhesive, you may have heard me say this, dry adhesive is not very permanent. So there is the potential, especially depending on certain climates. If you live in a more hot, humid climate, there's the potential for dry adhesive to actually completely dry and then just, you find your items start to peel apart and lose their stick. Liquid adhesive is going to be very permanent. I've chosen a PVA glue because it is water-based, and both of these materials, both the cork and the ceramic, they are porous materials. So I don't know for certain if I'm choosing the right adhesive, but it's either, but I wanted to use something, so it was either a PVA glue, like what I'm using, or something like Beacon 3-in-1 or my Kalal all-purpose glue, which are both, they are not water-based, so not sure which is the best to use in this application, but I'm gonna try these, and I am gonna be giving these away as Christmas presents, so hopefully they're really durable. I wish I had, like, longer to test these out before I gave them away as gifts, but I think they'll hold up well. So I'm just making sure I give this a nice firm burnish too. Really make sure that, and I did wipe, the backs of the coasters just to make sure it was a nice clean surface. But there you have it. And the way that these coasters came is they were individually wrapped in their own little bubble wrap. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put them back into their bubble wrap, and then make a little gift box to put these in. So it's gonna be a really nice sort of pro packaging, except there's not gonna be like a brand or a label to it. But I think they're gonna make for a really, really nice gift for Christmas. So that's my plan. That's how I'll be finishing these off. I'll probably make a nice little box to gift them in, and yeah, I'm gonna have like quite a few really fun DIY handmade Christmas presents to give out this year, so I'm really excited. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I'll mention my next video that I'll be doing with regards to pouring is I did get some Christmas ornaments, like the bubble kind of ornaments, the ball. So I'm gonna try that. I think that's gonna be really fun too. And I'll be creating maybe some sets of Christmas baubles, like maybe sets of 4 just like these, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm so hooked, and this makes me happy to see, like, using up my supplies, and so that was really the whole point of starting this. I didn't at the beginning think that I would love it as much as I do, but my goal was just to use up, find more uses for my acrylic paint, and I'm really happy to see, a near empty tube. One more pour session, and this gets to go in the bin. So I'm really happy. I mean, this is one of 60. So it's nice to make a dent in my art supplies. Okay, so that's enough for me. Thank you for joining, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.